Howdy folks, Jamboree here. When filmmaker George Lucas decided to produce a movie adaptation of the satirical Marvel comic book series Howard the Duck, he was convinced that he was going to be making something timeless. Instead, it ended up being a Razzie winning film and is considered one of the worst movies ever made. However, it has gained a cult following from a loyal fan base. So, do I think that this movie deserved its highly negative reception, or do I think it's secretly good? Howard is an advertising company man who lives alone in a world just like ours, except everyone is an anthropomorphic duck. Suddenly he's transported to our world, where he meets punk musician Beverly, who takes him in to look after him. With help from an eccentric lab assistant called Bill, Beverly and Howard try to work out why and how the duck ended up on Earth. Bill gets in touch with some scientists who explain everything, then promise to send him home. But one of the scientists is suddenly possessed by a dark overlord who wants to take over the world. Can Howie defeat this alien monster? I'm very much in the middle of the audience for this movie. It's nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. The negativity has been slightly exaggerated, but I also wouldn't say that it's underrated or deserves better praise. Firstly, it has no idea what it is or which audience demographic it's designed for. It's trying to be a wacky, whimsical comedy and a dark adult satire, but you can't have both of these polar opposite targets because it just makes both sides feel alienated. It's also going for a very standard commercial Hollywood story, something too safe and overdone. A character coming from another world to ours, struggling to fit in and having to take on a generic supernatural bad guy who wants to rule the world. This is the formula that most studios go with when unconfident about adapting a licensed material. The pacing is beyond awful too, with the storytelling bumbling along, bouncing from one shenanigan to the next, bogged down by long-ass chase sequences or random confrontations. Too much of the narrative is based on sudden turns to keep the momentum going, but this just makes everything uneven and unfocused because the direction is constantly changing its mind. I did not care about what was happening at all, because not only is the world made up of mean, nasty people not worth saving or protecting, but the villain jumps into the story randomly, only becoming a legit threat in the second half of the film. The romance between Howie and Beverly is difficult to give a crap about too, because it's all over the place. The romantic element is very out of the blue, as they're mainly platonic friends for most of the film, then suddenly they feel attracted to each other one night, leading to a flirty moment. Then later, Beverly randomly calls Howard her boyfriend, even though no consented relationship was agreed upon and the guy was just about to be sent back home. I'm not sure how serious Beverly is about the relationship half the time too. It's never totally clear. It's a really muddled romantic arc that's hard to follow or enjoy. The actors could have saved the film, but most of them are trying way too hard to ham it up, under the assumption that comic book movies need to be as cartoony as possible. The biggest culprit for this is Tim Robbins, who practically devours the scenery with his performance, to the point where he ends up becoming unintentionally scary and off-kilter.
This is amazing. Man's oldest fantasy. Across a sea of stars, look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a duck.
Phil, you've got to help us. What are we gonna do?
But the major problem that I have with the film is that it's not funny in the slightest. For a wisecracking duck, Howie doesn't really have many zingers, mainly just pointless casual remarks or stupid duck puns.
No one laughs at a master of quack foo and
The choice to go for wide humor appeal doesn't work, because adults will find the juvenile gags annoying, and the racier comedy isn't appropriate for kids. The decision to make Howard's world just like ours, except everyone is a duck, doesn't make for many comedic opportunities when he lands on Earth. It's just the same joke of seeing humans freaking out or sneering at the existence of a talking anthropomorphic duck. It gets so tiringly repetitive. Yet, I still don't think that this movie is as bad as legends say. Why is that? Well, as boring and messy as the film is, there's still ambition and passion behind it. The filmmakers are trying to make something great. They may not entirely succeed, but I respect their enthusiasm. There's some charm to their failure that makes me understand the cult following. The cheesy acting, over-the-top special effects, and dated 80s aesthetics make for a campy retro appeal. The movie is at its most engaging when it embraces its silliness. Not to mention, the film includes a batshit crazy confrontation with a giant stop-motion alien monster which was created by Phil Tippett. It's an awesome and well-animated special effect that steals the film. Unlike most bottom-of-the-barrel bad movies, there's something endearingly bad about this clunker. The film can be somewhat relatable too, with its theme of struggling for success. Howard's life is a constant string of poor luck, his dreams for rock music have been replaced with a more traditional advertising job, and the work he gets in our world is the worst you could imagine. While Beverly is stuck in a contractual obligation to a sleazy manager, yet has all this raw energy for becoming a big rock star. These plots tie into something we can all resonate with, the path to careers we really want while being trapped in lives we don't like. So yeah, I don't think that this movie deserves to be on the worst films ever made list. That sounds a bit overdramatic. Anyway, let's talk about the focus of this review series, the puppetry. Howard was created using an animatronic head, which was worn by short actors in a costume. It's not very convincing, you can see right through the illusion of the effects. Plus there's a weird, creepy, uncanny valley vibe to the whole puppet. And the actors don't add much charisma or personality to Howard's body, each one is just doing basic gestures and movements as instructed. The complexities of the engineering behind the animatronics are impressive from a technical standpoint, but Howard's expressions are very limited, and the beak flaps are stilted. A part of me thinks that Howard should have been a Muppet-style puppet all the way through the movie. It would have been more fitting, as Howard is supposed to be a parody of cartoon characters. The puppet they went with, though, it's not the worst I've seen, as the craftsmanship is there, but the end result lacks character or conviction. Chip Zien's voice for Howard is okay, but bland. It's not got much to it. He can act, but there's a spice and edge missing that fits the surly personality of Howard.
Listen, if you got blasted millions of miles through space, ended up on another planet, and were given an IQ test by a janitor, you'd be a little pissed off too.
To conclude, Howard the Duck is a messy and boring hodgepodge of ideas and tones that don't mix together at all. It doesn't know what it wants to be, it sticks very firmly to Hollywood cliches, and the Howard puppet isn't exactly good. But I can't say that I hate it as much as the general public and critics, as there is some heart and passion behind it, as confused as it is. No, I don't think that it deserved way more praise than it received. It's just an over-budgeted, average B-movie. Howard has had cameos in several Marvel Cinematic Universe films, voiced by a well-cast Seth Green.
You know what they say, you're out of luck until you've gone duck.
So maybe a reboot of this movie could be in the horizon. I've been Jamboree, and I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, then feel free to subscribe, like, and share. Also consider supporting me by making a monthly pledge to my Patreon in return for awesome rewards. Thank you. So what am I going to be reviewing for the next episode of Puppet Panic? Well, did you know that this year marks the 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters? So let's talk about the Ghostbusters movies, starting with the original first film. Cheerio, folks.